If you are working on your presentation skills in a foreign language, I do not mean to belittle your effort, but I must say that delivering a prepared speech in a foreign language is an easier task than to learn to speak spontaneously in a foreign language with a lot of confidence and clarity. I am mostly interested in achieving that confidence in spontaneous conversations with people. It's easy to prepare a speech. It's impossible to prepare every next conversation you're going to have in life. It's impossible to get ready for all those questions that people might ask at the end of your presentation or at the end of the meeting or in the middle of the meeting. We never know. Knowing that it's impossible, I have to ask myself, what is possible? What I know is possible is that instead of trying to prepare my words, instead of trying to think ahead and learn or memorize some smart phrases that I can insert here and there in a conversation, I don't want to do this. Instead, what I can do is I can prepare myself so that my mind can deal with uncertainty in any situation. What happens with students who try to memorize useful phrases that they can insert in conversations that happen every day in a foreign language at work is that they get stuck. They get stuck if they're not sure that this is a good moment to use that phrase. They get stuck if they get a response that they didn't expect. They get stuck if they forget one word in that beautiful phrase that they thought they had mastered. And they don't really have the strategies to get themselves unstuck. That's why I prefer to invest in preparing myself. If I am ready internally for any conversation, then I am ready for any conversation. Here are some important things that I want to share with you so that you can apply the same strategies when it comes to preparing yourself. Number one, pay attention to your autopilot. What happens all the time is that when we speak spontaneously in a foreign language, we find ourselves running on autopilot. We make the same stupid mistakes. We can't seem to get rid of those old stubborn mistakes, and we repeat them over and over again, and we can't even hear ourselves. We are on autopilot. We structure our sentences on autopilot. Maybe the way we structure our sentences is heavily influenced by the structure of our first language. We use the same words on autopilot. We forget the words that we kind of know, so we use the words that are readily available instead. We respond to people on autopilot. We use body language on autopilot, body language that is not a good cultural fit in that conversation or in that country. We nod where we're not supposed to nod, right? Or we shake our head where we're in situations where we're not supposed to shake our head because it means a completely different thing in a different culture. Pay attention to your autopilot mode, and you have to understand that if you're someone who is seriously working on improving your fluency in a foreign language, you are already working on developing your second language identity. And your second language identity depends heavily and is influenced heavily by the habits of your first language identity. If you pay attention to your autopilot mode when you speak your first language, you will quickly learn to understand what specifically you need to be paying attention to when you speak in a foreign language. Learn to be attentive to how you speak, because changing your autopilot, meaning changing your identity, changing your speaking behavior consciously, is one of the most difficult tasks. It's more difficult than to learn sophisticated words or to learn all the grammar of the English language. Tip number 2, learn to self-regulate your inner state. Learn the practices and the methods to balance your emotional state and self-regulate your energy. Unfortunately, in the world of adult education, low energy is a very real problem. People know what they need to do, yet they find themselves procrastinating and doing something else instead, simply because they have low energy levels and they don't really have strategies to approach that. They do not have strategies to replenish their energy. They do not have strategies to deal with all those negative emotions that arise in the process of learning, because let's face it, learning is difficult. You receive feedback that you didn't expect to receive. You learn something about yourself that you didn't expect to learn. You make the same mistakes over and over again, even though you thought you'd already mastered those things. And learning takes effort. Learning must be effortful, but you also must accept the responsibility. You must accept that this is your responsibility to take care of your emotions during the learning process. And you need to learn to own your learning process. It's yours. Own it. And the third tip is obvious. It's preparation. As I said, you can't prepare for every conversation you're going to have in life in a foreign language, but what you can do is you can learn to become comfortable with your own speech. It must become a habit to say everything you see out loud, everything that is worth listening to, everything that is worth learning, everything that is worth using and applying, everything that you think is valuable. You have to repeat everything out loud. You see a word, read it out loud. You heard someone say an interesting phrase, repeat it out loud. You saw an interesting word, learn this word by using it in sentences, by looking at good, correct sentences with this word, and say each sentence out loud a few times. It must become a habit. You want to say everything out loud so that you learn to hear yourself and so that you become comfortable with how you speak. And here is one more important exercise. As you speak in English, learn to listen to your voice. Because as soon as you start listening, you will find that you can actually hear everything that you're saying, and this will automatically get you out of that autopilot mode. You're not an autopilot anymore when you're listening to every word that you're saying. But again, don't make this mistake of listening to the words that you're saying. You're not supposed to be listening to the words with the intent to correct the words. All I'm asking you to do is to listen to your voice. Basically, shift your attention from thinking about the words you're going to say next to listening to the melody, to the sound that's coming out of your mouth. And that will help you become more aware when you speak. If you want to learn more exercises, and if you want to practice everything that I've been talking about, join the community of practice or join one of my programs. And we're going to learn this together because all my programs imply individual feedback and continuous guidance. Take care.